Good afternoon. It's Outdoors Ohio. I'm Steve. What we're going to do today, I really don't like doing this because you see it on YouTube all the time, these guys doing turkey vest dumps. But I've had a few people ask me just, what I take with me. And it's pretty simple. I don't get too carried away, but I also like to make sure I have everything I need, right? So I'll just go through it real quick, and then the guns I use, and then that'll be it. Try to keep it as quick as possible. First thing you obviously need is a turkey vest. All right, I've had this one for quite a while. It's a Cabela's tactical vest. I don't even know if they still make it, but I like it because it's not the full vest. It's like a strap vest, but it still has plenty of pockets and room for all your calls. So, and I think that's obviously very important. But my bread and butter, I like a lot of friction calls. I really do. I usually keep a couple, 2 to 3 slate calls, not slate calls, but pot calls all together, a couple different box calls, and then obviously mouth calls, and then like crow calls. I do owl hoots with my mouth, so I don't use an owl hoot. But I usually have, this is a crystal call. I like having a crystal call or glass, which I have both. But this one's a Rolling Thunder crystal call, and of course a slate call. I like having a slate call for making those natural calls, a little more soft, a little more subtle, especially doing like tree yelps in the morning. That's always good to have. And then, like I said, I do have a glass call that I always keep. So this glass call is nice. It's got the nice walnut pot on it. It's a beautiful call. Rolling Thunder calls, I like them. So I always have that. And then I always go to the woods with about 3 or 4 strikers. I do have 4 in this vest. I have 2 flare tip, and then I do have a diamond wood, and then another flare tip that I like to have for glass, or obviously the glass, crystal, or slate, obviously. All right, so again, like I said, I do like to take a couple different box calls. This one's a Rolling Thunder box call. It's a little more unique. It's rounded, and it's got a nice shape to it. So, like, especially when you're holding with gloves, you get a good bite on it. So, again, I like having a couple box calls. And then, like I said, I usually have a couple. Just need to make a little space here. I always take, this is a smaller one. It's a little more high pitch. You just don't know what those turkeys are going to want. So this one being a little smaller. And the thing I found out too, if like you're worried about them squeaking, okay, I always use a piece of napkin inside. Okay, there's a piece of napkin, and I put chalk on it, so you don't lose all your chalk. And if you're going to steal your girlfriend or your wife's hair ties, all right, these are real cheap. You can get, I don't know how many you get for like $2. You get a bunch of them. But this way you put that paper towel in there, wrap that around, doesn't make any sound, doesn't wipe all your chalk off. So that's kind of nice to have. I also take, I know a lot of companies make them. Again, mine are Rolling Thunder, but I like a push-pull. And the reason is I can't purr very good on my mouth call. So when you're getting that turkey in those last, 70, 80 yards, what have you, when you have your gun and up and you're ready, you can do those slight little purrs. So you can have it in one hand. You'd have it in one hand. So again, I can't purr very good, but that's all I use this for, because I don't like the yelps on them, but doing those little purrs, very subtle, very easy to do. So I like that. So that's pretty much it for calls other than mouth calls, which this vest is nice. It's got like an attached lanyard. And I have probably 4 or 5 diaphragm calls that I love to use. And I put them in here, okay? Now the nice part is, again, this kind of pinches, so it's kind of nice, and it's got its own little pocket. But I do have another packet in case you ever lose your calls, right? You don't want to be out without them. So I have an extra pouch that has extra calls in it, and that goes right in this front pocket, which is nice. So it's nice to have extra ones in case you lose them, they fall out, you drop it in the excitement, or you're getting up to chase a bird. Okay, you have extras in case you drop them. All right. Obviously, you got to have the masks. I always take two. I have a little thicker one when it's colder, those cool mornings. And then obviously I have a mesh style when it's quite a bit warmer, so that helps out a lot. And I usually take 2 or 3 pair of gloves, and the reason being behind that, number one, you don't know who you're hunting with if they have gloves, but I like to kind of match them up a little bit, so I always bring 2 or 3. Also, you never know when you're going to get wet, and the last thing you want are your hands wet all the time, so I do take 2, 3 pair of gloves I actually have with me at all times. All right, for the odds and ends stuff, I like having a turkey tote, guys. They're cheap. I've seen guys make their own. I forgot where I got this. It wasn't very expensive, but man, what a world of difference, especially if you got to tote a bird all the way out of the woods, because I know a lot of birds don't fit in the back of vests. I know it doesn't fit in the back of this one very good, but a turkey tote is so convenient, and I get the bright color, obviously. You know, you're toting bird out with your flag on the back and having this bright colors kind of just as a safety thing, and that's first and foremost. But turkey tote's always nice to have. This is a Primo Slick Stick. It's nice to have the diamond stones on it. You have a conditioning spot there for your striker, and there's some more Scotch-Brite, and there's chalk in there, so it does everything you need to condition your calls, which is great. I actually keep a compass, so if you're hunting public land and you're not sure where you're going, a compass always comes handy. I know not every time you got what do you call it, service for your phone. Always keep a small flashlight. Always keep a small flashlight. Try not to use flashlights much. Couple pens, fill out your tags. Zip ties. I got mini zip ties, so when you get tagged that bird, right, you put your tag and zip tie it to the leg, you're all legal. So that makes that nice and handy. Extra chalk. Chalk for your box calls, your friction calls. And I always have a lighter on me. So I got, coincidentally, a little turkey lighter. And I think that's about it. Now, I always keep in the back, guys. If any of you hunted long enough, y'all know this, maybe. Well, first and foremost, I know a lot of guys are using Thermacells. I use my Thermacell for deer because it doesn't seem to bother the deer smell. It doesn't seem to bother them, but I always carry off with me as well. Just, again, you never know when you get in that late season how bad the mosquitoes are. But I always, of course, gotta have TP. I always keep TP in my vest. And, oh, forgot. Got my Rolling Thunder Crow Call. Got my Crow Call. And then I have a spot in this vest, which is nice. Most vests have them, actually. A spot for your shotgun shells. These have those nice little neoprene sleeves so they don't bounce around. So I usually keep 6 shells in my vest. I think that's more than enough. That's about all that I keep in my vest. Now, as far as a vest, you want one that's comfortable, not too big. If you're a run and gunner, you don't want a full vest, and you don't want to pack it too full, right? Because it's just heavy. It's too much, all right? So pick a vest that fits your style of hunting. If you like to do both, great. I like this vest. Got a big old thick pad that just kind of rolls down. No magnets, no nothing for it to keep falling. That can get annoying. I've had vests with those magnets and they fall. The minute you're like crawling under something or whatever, they fall down. It gets annoying. So this one folds, which is nice. Now, as far as shotguns, guys, you can use 20 gauge, 12 gauge, 14 gauge, 10 gauge, or not a 14 gauge, 410. There's all different styles. I usually go with a 12 gauge more often than not. I use Mossberg's. It's my Mossberg 500. Pretty basic. Got the thumb hole stock on it. And I team it up with the Carlson choke. It's the Longbeard XR choke. So it goes with the Longbeard XR Winchester loads that I use, which I'll talk about in a minute. But simple Mossberg 500 gets the job done. Pretty inexpensive gun. And the one I've been using a lot is the Mossberg 835. This shoots 3.5s. Again, it's got the Carlson's Longbeard XR choke in it. But I like a camo gun. You don't have to, obviously. You could use the old school brown with synthetic black or what have you. But camo for the turkey woods is almost a must. I've actually seen single-handedly with a buddy of mine. He had a black gun, and the sun shining off of it, I think, spooked the turkey. So camo seems to just be the way to go. Not saying those other ones don't work, but they do. And again, like I said, I used the Winchester Longbeard XRs. I use the 3.5s. I like the 5-shot. And then obviously for my regular Mossberg 500, it only goes to a 3-inch. So you like the 3-inch and a 5-shot. So well, this says $20, but they're close to 30 now for 10 rounds. They're pretty inexpensive, but they are a great load, very accurate, good patterns clear out the 60 yards. So they're really lethal load, and they're not as much as like those TSSs. So it's a good load. So other than that, hopefully that's pretty easy. For all you guys, you don't have the guys that are inexperienced or trying to get out in the woods, guys, you don't need a ton of calls. You know, usually 2 pot calls, a glass and a slate's usually really good. 1 box call is more than enough. I like 2 though. Diaphragms, if you don't know how to use a diaphragm, that's fine. Get those push pulls. They're great for doing those purrs and stuff when birds are close. I know a lot of guys can't do the diaphragms. It took me forever to learn how to do them, but I still can't purr on them. So it's very, very important to have a few different calls, because if you go with buddies, you'll see one day they don't answer. You'll go out, they're not answering you, and your buddy has a totally different call, and they answer him, and they're not answering you. It's just you got to play and see which ones they're listening, or which ones they're going to gobble to. I like to use my box calls more or less for locating birds. If the crow call's not working, you know, hitting the top of those ridge tops, or just in an open area, and you can hit that box call. It's a little higher pitch, cuts through the wind a lot better. Whereas your pot calls are more for, you know, just basically calling. So your glass or your slate or even aluminum are great for calling birds. So don't have to overcomplicate it. Just make sure you got your masks, your gloves. Again, just a handful of different calls, and you should be good to go. But safety is always first. Make sure you're checking all your safety regulations in your state, and make sure when you do tote that bird out in the turkey woods there, you pull your orange flag out. Doesn't matter if you're on public or private. You always want to be safe walking back to the truck. So other than that, without further ado, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next adventure.